A victim of a suspected hate crime in Kansas, Srinivas Kuchibotla, was today cremated in his hometown of Hyderabad. Meanwhile, the accused, Adam Purinton, appeared in court for the first time, where he asked the judge for a public defender. President Trump, who is very vocal on social media, however, so far has maintained a stony silence over the entire matter. However, Hillary Clinton has tweeted saying, and I quote her now, "With threats and hate crimes on the rise, we shouldn't have to tell POTUS," that's the President of the United States, "to do his part. He must step up and speak out," unquote. Now, India's Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar, who's on a 4-day visit to the U.S., is expected to raise the issue of the Kansas shooting and the change rules for H-1B visas, the kind of visa most Indian techies use to work and live in the U.S.
From our country's founding, we've been dedicated to protecting the freedom of our citizens' rights to worship. No one in America should feel afraid to follow the religion of their choosing freely and openly. The President is dedicated to preserving this originating principle of our nation. And while we're at it, I don't want to get ahead of the law enforcement, but I was asked the other day about the story in Kansas, the shooting in Kansas. And while the story is evolving, early reports out of Kansas are equally disturbing.
When they're personally coming and extending the support, Sushma Swaraj helped a lot to move the body from there to here, and after that, himself, Sri Venkaiah Naidu Garu also came to our home and assured any support and any recommendation or any delegation to stop this violence over there, and governments and even state government also, they assured for that strong delegation to happen from AP, Telangana, so that until the violence is stopped.
We have come to express our support, emotional and moral support, that in this hour of crisis, we are entirely with them, and particularly with Mrs. Sunaina. BJP wants American government and American society to express its commitment to the core values of democracy and also the right of the people to come and work. This is a serious challenge, and this is a serious question to the American government.
Colleague Geeta Mohan for more on this. Geeta, of course, much has been said about the silence of Donald Trump on the shootout. Sean Spicer did mention it, but that's nowhere near enough to assuage the feelings of the apprehensions of the Indian immigrant community, the diaspora in the U.S. Jaishankar, of course, on a 4-day visit, is also expected to raise the issue, but apprehensions, of course, have doubled ever since Trump came to power.
Well, that's right. The leadership in the United States of America has continued with the kind of very strong statements that we're seeing when it comes to immigrants, as also to do with people of various races. We're looking at a white supremacist who took a law into his own hands only because of the strength he gets from the hate rant that continues from various leaders, including the harsh statements from none other than President Donald Trump. Having said that, Sean Spicer only came out with not even a response to the question on the Indian attack. Instead, they have moved the entire debate and narrative to first let the FBI determine whether if it is a hate crime or not, and only then will the President or the White House come out with a statement. That surely goes to show that there is a narrative that is being set on whether if they are indeed going to call it a hate crime or just a case of insanity, an incident of a man who had gone insane and is not sane and carried out that act of violence against a particular community. Having said that, it is time, and we've seen various leaders, including Hillary Clinton, who's come out and asked Donald Trump to speak up. It happened at Oscars. It has been happening through and through, where leaders are coming out and saying that President Donald Trump needs to speak up on the incident of violence.
Right.
Even if it is not a hate crime, it's time that the President speaks up and ensures that the community feels safe again.
All right, stay with us, Geeta. We're getting some reactions on this story now. Let's take a look at those.
On behalf of the government of Andhra Pradesh, We are extending our deep gratitude for the demise of this young guy, Srinivas. It should not be happen anywhere. After the Trump's government, so many incidents are occurring. Nearly 39 incidents have been occurred all these 6 months. So, on behalf of the government of Andhra Pradesh, we made a resolution and appeal to the central government. It should kindly attend to the interests of the people, with Telugu-speaking persons in US.
It is very unfortunate that United States of America, which purports to be the cradle of democracy and cradle of the free rights in the world, that such things are happening in its own country. This unfortunately has started after President Trump's victory, which shows a very bad trend within the country itself. America, as you know, is made by immigrants. Even Donald Trump and all are not the natural citizens, natural born, what should I say, not the natural inhabitants of America.
यूएस में नस्ली हिंसा होने लग गई है, क्योंकि वहाँ भी कुछ भड़काऊ किस्म की बयान इलेक्शन के दौरान दिए गए हैं और उनका असर ग्राउंड पे नजर आना शुरू हो गया है। मुसलमानों के खिलाफ जो गुस्सा है वहाँ पे उनके 9/11 के बाद में, उसको दूसरी कम्युनिटी के खिलाफ भी भड़काने की ये कोशिशें हैं। यूएस को स्ट्रिक्ट एक्शन लेना चाहिए। जो भी नस्ली हिंसा में इस तरह की घटनाएं होती हैं उस पर स्ट्रिक्ट एक्शन लेना चाहिए और ऐसी पॉलिसी बनानी चाहिए ताकि ऐसे हमले किसी भी कंट्री के बाशिंदों पे ना हो।
Let's go back to Geeta Mohan for more on this. Geeta, of course, you mentioned Hillary Clinton coming out and tweeting at protests saying that we shouldn't have to tell the president to speak out on such matters. It's very unlikely that Trump will mention this particular hate crime or perceived hate crime in his address to the Congress, but there are, of course, more and more voices now, perhaps even voices who were jubilant when Trump won in India and, of course, in the US, who perhaps are now rethinking their support for the kind of administration Trump has rolled out. Now, many people expected him to pivot to a more presidential outlook. That hasn't really happened if you go by news reports coming into the American media itself.
Well, absolutely. There are many who are considering and reconsidering, but also have to remember he won the presidential election on the basis of the statements that he was making, the polarizing statements. So the fact that he's quiet and he's not spoken is because there's an entire constituency who he cannot upset, and is the reason why he's being very careful. This is a white man who took law into his own hands, but went ahead, a U.S. veteran nonetheless, a U.S. Navy veteran who went ahead killing two people, killing one and injuring the other, thinking and assuming that they were from the Middle East. That really goes to show the mindset that the man had, but also goes to show the mindset and the way the U.S. administration and Donald Trump's office is working is to ensure that his own constituency is not upset by any extreme stand or statement that he makes at this point. So they are waiting for the FBI to either call it a hate crime, or we could hear the FBI or the courts say that it was an act of insanity, and if that happens, it will be really rather unfortunate. But in his presidential address, Athar, while we do not expect him to really take on the issue of hate crime and increasing incidents of hate crime, but do not be surprised to really respond to the criticism that he's received in not speaking up on the issue of hate crime. Well, that could really happen.
Absolutely. He's been at war with the media there, and not just the media, at times with his own intelligence services as well. Thank you, Geeta Mohan, for joining us on this story. We move on now